Hello, Raleigh. This is citizen reporter Robert Courts coming to you from the Your Backyard News Network. And I am tickled to death to again be able to interview Councilwoman Christina Jones. Christina, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Well, it's such a pleasure. You've been very good to YBY and all of the local businesses. And we appreciate this opportunity for a one-on-one.
Thank you.
But Christina, specifically would like to talk about your evolution as a counselor over the last 2 years. It's been my joy to see you start playing checkers, but very quickly learn to play chess.
Thank you.
And by that, I mean, being a very freshman counselor, you very quickly went from just soaking it up to playing to your district's and Raleigh's city advantage. So if you'll share a few minutes, I would like to dive a little deeper into this.
I would love it. Thank you so much.
So Christina, I'd like to lead with the fact that I've noticed you are not scared to ask questions.
I love that you frame it that way because I feel sometimes that I may annoy people with questions. But as I have jumped into this political landscape long before I became a counselor, going to these meetings, I understood from a very early time that if I don't ask a question, then I go leaving that without knowledge. And so it's been a point of mine to make sure that in every meeting I ask at least one question, just to make sure that they know that I'm paying attention and that I know that I'm constantly learning.
Well, as an entrepreneur, we constantly ask questions. Love that if you don't know, you will ask somebody. I'm also tickled to see that you are not scared to stand alone in your convictions. And what I mean by this is often see you be the lone nay vote or one of a few that will say, no, I'm against this. As we saw at yesterday's city council meeting with the DRA and the MSDs, would you explain why you took a nay vote and would be willing to stand alone against the tide?
Definitely. So I think more broadly speaking, that the fact that I am willing to be the no vote or the lone no vote is because I'm standing by the education and the research that I've done. That doesn't mean that it's going to translate with everyone and everyone is welcome to have their own opinions. But for me to get to the no, I think there are two things. Either I've done a lot of research to where I just don't agree with said vote, or I don't know enough. I also think that no votes mean I haven't received the education. I haven't received the information in order to make a decision. So I've made those as well. They aren't all research driven, but the majority of them are. In terms of the downtown Raleigh expansion, that we've been looking at that for a few months. It's a whole process that started probably about a year ago, and they're going through. We did exclusions. There's a lot of people who said they didn't want to be part of it. And for me, I don't know that I have seen the full scope of what DRA is capable of. They do amazing things with ambassadors. They do, but to expand, when I think of DRA and I think of downtown, I'm really concerned with the amount of businesses that are leaving. Those that they don't know who DRA is, and so for those reasons, the expansion seemed a little premature for me. We had given them in last year's budget a few $100,000. We added another social worker, which are amazing components to what they add. But for me, there was just a little too much for expansion. I felt that we needed a little bit more time to get where we were going and making that roadmap to make sure that we were hitting on all of our issues in downtown. And I didn't feel that we were there yet. So I think clearly the rest of council did not agree, and that is their prerogative.
Right.
It is democracy, but for me, it wasn't enough.
Well, we appreciate your advocacy and willing to stand on your convictions. Speaking of yesterday's meeting, there was also, that keeps coming up time and again, is the Prince Hall District and what's going on in there. And we see you championing and slowing it down, the process. Can you tell us a little bit about why you're willing to stand on your convictions in the Prince Hall and what's going on there?
Most definitely. So Prince Hall Overlay District is something that I just learned about probably a year ago. We have a case before us that wants to remove themselves from that overlay district. And what that is, it's about protection of a certain area. And this is actually our first African-American Black district where we want to celebrate the accomplishments and the history of Black culture in that area. And as I delved into it, I am the liaison for the Raleigh Historic Development Commission, who saw this case first. And that was one of my first meetings with them. And I was like, wow, this is a lot of information. And over the last year, I've learned a lot from community members, from businesses, also on the other side, from the development community who do want to build in this area. But that overlay district has put restrictions, and that's on height, on building material. They have this so they can honor their history. And so when these applicants come in and say, I want to remove from that district, it's piecemealing the history of that area. And as we were doing it a few years ago, over the last few years, it has been piecemeal. There have been 5 different projects that have been pulled out of the district, and we received a piece of mail from the state Historic Preservation Society saying, hey, you guys need to decide, are you going to keep the district or are you going to get rid of it? Because here they are in 2012 giving us the authority to do this district. And now we're like, nah, never mind, but in small factions. And so I've been with RHDC the entire time and listening to the conversation. It wound up last month in a vote in which RHDC said, we want development, but it needs to fit within the parameters of what the Prince Hall was created for. And so they voted, I think 10 or 11-1 to maintain the district and not change anything. So as we were talking about different, whether that was big projects that are going through rezonings or city initiated stuff. I mean, there are stuff that came through yesterday where they wanted on Bloodworth Street to sell a piece of property. And that actually had 3 no votes. That was me, Stormy Ford, Councilor Ford, and Councilor Black, who said, wait a minute, RHDC said, don't change anything. And here we are, we're gonna maybe, whenever we make the decision for that one rezoning, say, no, you can't change it. But then the city comes in and says, oh no, you can build whatever you want. Like, we need to be consistent, I guess is the point of those no votes that the 3 of us were going after, where that we haven't decided on that rezoning. The Prince Hall overlay district as a whole is in question, and it's going to committee, to the EDI committee in June. And so I didn't think that was a decision we needed to make yesterday. We discussed having it go with all of the discussion on Prince Hall and that rezoning, and it got voted down. But those are the reasons. You know, there's a lot of conversation that the public may not be privy to because not everyone goes. I mean, it is a public meeting. You are more than welcome to join the RHDC meetings, but most of the public doesn't. So our council meetings are our opportunity to share all the knowledge that we've acquired during the however long or short we've had a decision in front of us, and help educate the public as to what is going on and who is impacted, what all those conversations are happening underneath.
Well, this speaks to me, Christina, as your pro-growth commitment. Yes, Raleigh's growing. We want it to grow. But Prince Hall shows your respect toward that which came before us. You know, Raleigh is an old city. It has a lot of great traditions and a lot of great areas that speak to our wonderful past. And you are very committed to that. And I don't want to get into it today because I have one more topic, but your commitment to affordable housing and growth is a very similar situation. So,
yeah, I don't want to take a bulldozer to growth. You know, growth can mean many different things. It's a wide spectrum of what growth means. And it doesn't only mean 30 and 40 story towers. Growth means the 3-story or the 1-story barbershop in Prince Hall. That's growth, and that's beautiful. So if we only look at growth as being as big as we can get, then we're missing out on so much culture and so much nuance that I think is what makes Raleigh, Raleigh.
Right. Well, in our last few minutes, I do want one more topic, very salient to what's going on today and yesterday at the City Council, and that's the upcoming budget. This is yet another budget cycle for you. In your growth from playing checkers to chess, I've seen you become more and more in depth in the budget. Could you speak to just a broad range of your budget finesse and what you see going on in that document?
Yes. we have a 1.4 billion with a B, the $billion budget. It grew from the 1.2 last year, and that's great. We definitely like to see growth. And I'm by no means an expert. I love to rely on the experts that we have within the city, and just to see what they believe, and have them fold in our priorities and wish lists. And so I really appreciate the work that they put into it. Last year, a big priority for us was to begin this budget cycle earlier, because the first budget we did started in February, and it went by like that. And by the time we came to the vote, I was like, wait, I don't feel like I understand anything of what I'm voting on. And that didn't feel good. So we prioritized starting in October, which they did, and they did a lot of engagement. Hopefully that continues, because no one was really ready for that as public. We'd never done it that early. So
Right.
I won't say that we hit a ton of people, but we hit more than we did prior. And that's really the goal. We can't get to 100%. We got to kind of crawl our way up. And I really do believe and I'm proud of the work that our budget department did in engagement prior to this. I'm still hesitant on how we as council receive the budget. I believe that, we have budget work sessions starting in February, but it's once a month. So it's really free. And we don't get to choose which departments come to us. And so that is something that I have learned to prioritize in this year. And hopefully after the election, and hopefully I get to stay in my seat, I will continue that into our next budget cycle of really requesting who I would like to see. Of course, there are things that we have to see. We got to see our enterprise. You got to see how water and stormwater and those fees. But I'd like to see more of our first responders. We didn't get to talk to the police department or the fire department or EMS.
Wow.
So that was a missed opportunity, in my opinion, especially since those are some of our biggest budget items. And then this year, the focus for me is really employees. We have, over the last year, I've watched as our vacancy rate has increased. I've watched and I've been a part of day in the lives, meaning that I worked with police, fire, I went to stormwater, I went to solid waste services, and I got to speak with employees who are really upset because they have to live so far out of town in order to serve the city. So they're not even residents of the city they serve. And I think that presents a lot of problems. Public life, public service is never going to pay what private industry
Right.
That's a fact, and I understand that. So I really respect those who choose public service, because we don't do it for the money by any means. However, I don't think that's a reason to abuse it.
Right. We still need to live. Yes.
We still need to live that, and we're seeing salaries across the spectrum, not just in first responder, but across the aisle of departments, and how we're not meeting that promise to employees. So that's going to be, as I fine tooth comb. This is our budget. 400 pages, which is going to take me a while to get through. But as I do, I hope everyone understands that what I'm looking for is to make sure that the employees who serve the city, who ultimately make sure that your trash gets picked up, who make sure that there is somebody on the other end when you call 911, I want to make sure that they're there and that they want to be there for you. Because if we slack on their benefits and their salary, then the ones that hurt most are our residents.
Right.
Because as we see, a lot of our employees don't even live in the city. So the city itself is really gonna fracture if we don't ensure that we really pay attention to our employees.
I get the privilege of seeing you out and about more than the average citizen. And I love the way how you're always, championing local government, how important it is to people's lives, the most important, I would argue. But within that context, when you champion the employees, you are championing the very basic services of local government. We have a local government for safety and protection first. And I admire how you will put that above, if you allow me, you put the roots of the tree above the fruit of the tree. Everyone wants these parks. And I love the parks. I'm a bicyclist on this. I rode my bike yesterday. But if we don't take care of the roots, and your commitment to that is, in my opinion, second to none.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And that is something that I didn't see. And I think our budgets reflect that. Our police will look at it, for instance, in fire. Those numbers of how many people we employ haven't increased since 2014. So for the last 10 years, we have the same amount of officers that we did then, yet our population has exploded. So there is a deficiency there that we need to adjust, because as we went over these past 10 years, we had councils that did not prioritize that, because maybe it was easier, maybe it was more financially sound for them to get other projects that they wanted to get off the ground. But now we're paying for that. And we're seeing that in crime rates, we're seeing it in vacancy rates. And so it's a big deal that we have to work through, but we can. And I think conversation opens that. I think questions help get us to that finish line. So I'm excited to get through the discussion on this budget.
Well, Christina, we don't have any more time, but I wanted to say thank you so much, not only for your service to citizen engagement, but the fact that you really have become a counselor who plays chess and does the homework. Raleigh, Christina Jones, District D, all this and more is in your backyard. Christina, thank you. Let's wave everybody out.
Thank you.